Okay. Made another toilet paper run. And it is currently 89 degrees. It's supposed to be 91 by 5 p.m. Yeah, I got a couple of hours for that. Anyway, another toilet paper run, a good time for a language notes update. Yeah, I also went to the local thrift store and got a skirt. That one's a little bit more complicated, but if you have the opportunity to learn more about the culture you intend to live in, you probably ought to take it. So, yeah, that kind of hit me upside the head when I was in Puerto Rico. Wow, I was not expecting that. Anyway, yeah, that's a lot more complicated. Yeah, even just trying to find out a little bit more about the culture, I'm losing ground as far as my schedule is concerned. So things can get out of hand quickly. And so yeah, if you have an opportunity to get a handle on how you're going to approach learning your target language, do whatever you can. Because it's not going to be anything you intended it to be at any stage. Okay, so I've committed these 350, it's not even 350 because he repeats a few words. But whatever, 300 and whatever it is, 330, 340. Committed that to memory. And the only thing I'm getting out of it is when I hear, I don't know, 2 or 3 words, I know what it is. Just whatever, watching the news, listening to someone speaking, whatever. Yeah. Staying motivated is very important. You know what, I'm just going to read through the notes, and because there's really too much information. Okay, is this the right number? Yes, it is. Okay, updating objectives. Well, that's where I'm at now. Before I give you all that, considering what the sentences, which is where this part was supposed to, once I committed the words to memory, I was supposed to focus. Those sentences are so absurd and useless to me that I can't even bring myself to bother with it, already having to correct so much of the language material. I'm pretty much fed up with this. With it. So, as far as sentences are concerned, I'm going to jump right into in flight. If you've seen any of my previous videos about language, or you will have heard me commenting off and on about in flight. living languages, whatever. And the grammar he includes in that little booklet is so beyond the grasp of the average American as far as our educational system is concerned, and the little to no, well, we really don't spend too much time on grammar for the most part. So what am I going to do about that part? Lonely Planet is another language material thing I like using. I like the way they have it set up. They usually have a very, very short grammar section near the beginning of the phrase book. And that's what I'm going to use instead of the grammar notations offered by this other person. He's obviously not an American. So, I'm starting to realize I really need to focus on vocabulary, basically. Grammar as little as possible until I become conversational. And yeah, I'm just going to run through some of the notes, some of the things that occurred to me in the last few days as I was working through this. If I can find out where this thing starts. Oh, and I wrote a lot of notes. Okay, here we go. Language notes. This was 6 days ago. Okay. Foursies. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's in the booklet, covering 4 lists in one session. Alright, which basically comes out to 5.5 sessions. Reviewing everything daily. Yeah, I got to that point. Okay, after that, I was going to knock it down to 3 sessions and then 3 sets of sentences. But by the time that point came, I decided no, I'm not going to bother with all that. Okay, vocabulary covered every 2 days and sentences covered every week. Do this for 2 weeks. Yeah, well, that was my intention when I wrote this. Yeah, it's not that. 3 pages left. 1 page a day or 1 page a week. Yeah, I'm not even going to bother with that. Let me tell you, boys and girls, I am so unimpressed with my comprehension at this point. I expected at least to be able to say, oh, I know what that word is, you know, every, like a couple of times a day or something, but no, it's terrible, terrible, terrible. So I'm not impressed with it. Conversational skills. Conversational skills. Okay, repeating game. Random phrases from others or favorite movie scenes. Punchlines. Yeah, even after getting into the habit of watching movies in a target language, all you're doing is getting blasé about not understanding what you're listening to. Except for the punchlines. I don't know about anyone else, but I can never get over not understanding punchlines. It still bothers the heck out of me. Okay, at this point, I obviously wanted new material because Brooklyn Library material. I'll check to see if they had Lonely Planet and In-Flight Russian. Yes, they do. Top 25, take it from library material. Language notes continue. What is this? Come on. Mantras. I can use all the other words. This is to keep your frustration level down or in check when dealing with words that are refusing to stick. Okay, so for those words that just always give you problems, just know you've got all the other words you can use, so don't sweat it. Okay, chill. I can't even do that in Spanish. Here you would insert your own, another foreign language, if you have any background in any foreign language. Oh, that's only if you know another foreign language fairly well. And as far as getting a little frustrated about those words that don't stick, make sure you're going back and giving problem words extra review time. So yeah, say the mantra, but all the same, give it a little extra kick as you're going through all these things. Another benefit of having some kind of foreign language background is your ability to set more realistic objectives, I hope. Alright, this one's from July 7th. What was that, 4 days ago? Whatever. 2 years, question mark, question mark, question mark. I wanted to see how I was going to fill up the 2-year language threshold time. Okay, part 1, conversational Russian, quick and easy. This is in regards to where I'm going to get my vocabulary words from. So my first set of vocabulary words, I'll take it from conversational Russian. Second part, I'm taking it from In-Flight. Third part, I'm taking it from Lonely Planet. As far as that's concerned, only certain sections. Very specific sections. So I'm not gonna. But In-Flight, I want to be able. I want to cover the entire thing eventually. Okay, part 4, I put down staying motivated, news videos. That's for me personally. Videos focusing on news-related vocabulary. Review terms once a week. Okay, so this has already changed, but I wanted to just show you, as you're going through all this, certain ideas, certain notions will occur to you. So it's good to tinker until you're really satisfied with the results, or as satisfied as you can manage. Part 5, mixing it up, throwing in other favorites. In my case, that's Digital Dialogue. That's an online language website. And the other one is Fun and Easy. That's a language app, which is pretty close to flashcards, which is what I'm very familiar with. So I guess that's why I prefer it. Again, I put down once a week. Each review should only take 1 day, so you can add 7 parts if you so desire. 5 is more than enough. I put that in parentheses. Hopefully all this will fill up that 2-year language threshold. And then Russia or lessons or both. So hopefully within that 2-year period you'll be able to relocate, or at least be in a position to take lessons, right? So whichever. is more obtainable. Just focus in on that. More language notes. This is from the same day. No phrases until conversational, question mark, question mark, question mark. If I really want to be able to say a particular phrase, break it down to individual words and memorize the words. Actually, I put a question mark in this thing. Yeah, because I don't know how viable that is, but it's a point I intend to examine. Then dash, and then use the original phrase as a sample sentence. Again, I put another question mark. This is basically using the same approach as conversational Russian, quick and easy. And it became obvious to me because as I was attempting to learn other languages, I noticed that the greatest amount of progress I was able to make was when I got a phrase book like Lonely Planet, went through basic phrases, broke them down into the individual words, wrote the meaning of the individual words, and read through the phrases. My vocabulary obviously increased, and that is also where I felt I was gaining the most progress, or getting the most out of it. Okay, example. Okay, what's the Wi-Fi password? Okay, so breaking that down to individual words, what is the Wi-Fi password? I already know in Russian they don't use the. That article just isn't used. So I crossed the out, and I ended up with Готов пароль. Готов пароль at Wi-Fi. Готов пароль at Wi-Fi. Whatever. What is password for? Okay, what? No. Okay. Anyway, basically I'm taking my own previous experiences and really trying to break it down to figure out where I felt I was gaining the most out of my studies and at what point it kind of fell apart. And it kind of fell apart when I really started focusing in on the grammar instead of sticking to the vocabulary acquisition. Whatever. Okay, repetition, not exposure, question mark, because I had stated that it is repetition and not exposure that allows you to progress in a language. Once you know the meanings of individual words, perhaps exposure is useful. These are still just notions. I haven't put any of this to the test yet, at least in written form, so you can mull it over at your own pace. Get the most out of it. Dash, use phrase books as readers. Like I just mentioned, yeah. And be selective about the sections you choose. I circled this, put a star in this thing, and underlined it. So I just wanted to focus in on that. Alright, I separated it and said you can use your favorite book once you do the phrase book thing. I've actually already changed that book, that's okay. All this only applies to beginners and intermediate, beginning and intermediate students, not advanced students. Advanced students can use authentic material. When they refer to authentic material, they're referring to material intended for native speakers. All right, not for learners. not for foreigners. Okay, this part I circled. Everyone else must be forever mindful of staying motivated and obtaining enough skills to be functional. Yeah, really focusing on getting your priorities right, in other words. Okay, this one was, what, 3 days ago? Okay, comprehension. I'm going to put a little arrow on that thing. Established vocabulary. Vocabulary beyond associations. When your mind stops using associations, don't fight it. You'll need to get beyond associations in order to register a word when someone else says it, usually. Choosing vocabulary words. Be very selective. Very is kept. Make sure you start out with words that'll be of some use to you and that you'll need on a daily basis. Again, this is kept and underlined, daily. Okay. Example, airport related, no. Supermarket related, yes. Biggest bang for your buck. Blood, sweat, and tears is what I mean by that, not necessarily money. The amount of effort you have to put into it. Okay. Using a translator effectively. Another thing kept. Comprehension of enough complete sentences to get an idea of how the language is structured. You have to know the meaning. This one's circled and the stars next to this. You have to know the meanings of each individual word. Start out with phrase books. Most of the work is already done for you. Believe me, there's still plenty of work left. It is still easier than trying to use authentic material. Much easier, actually, right? And again, be very selective about the sections you choose. Don't waste your time and effort. Okay, because it's hard. Acquiring a language is hard enough without making the wrong choices. Okay, for adults, you may find you have to focus on greetings, even a little bit of on numbers, and certainly on things like supermarket-related things. Because you're the one that's going to go out and get the supplies. You're the one that has to break the ice, all right? And to a limited extent, at least, you're going to have to learn how to deal with numbers on at least a very basic level. By all means, don't feel shy about asking a vendor to write out the number if it comes to that. But, yeah, that depends. Sometimes they're way ahead of you and they'll punch it out on the calculator and show you. But maybe not. So depends on how much experience they have with foreigners. Okay, budget travelers. Bus related. Okay? That's also something you really should, that's going to be a very useful set of words. Right? So, yeah. Here I put in maybes. Let's see. Go by train or taxi. Use Google Maps. Oh, the bus related was the maybe I put in. Because you might end up going by train or taxi or using Google Maps, right? So you may not. You may find ways to avoid having to take the bus, which is problematic if you don't speak the language. Street signs. I did mention street signs previously. For this one, you have to wait until you get there. All right. So don't waste time focusing on things that there's enough to do with getting a very useful vocabulary established. So don't waste time. That really has to wait until you get there. These words will make up your new vocabulary list. Yeah, you're going to be forever making vocabulary lists, at least for a couple of years. All right, so that's really what your focus probably should be on. The importance of focusing on useful words can never be overstated. And you only need one way to say something. Just make sure it's commonly used. Yeah, don't use the most obscure form to say something. I mean, if you want to be a wise guy, you can do that, but it's really not worth the effort. Believe me, learning a language is enough of a challenge. Don't be an idiot. But whatever. Some egos just have to make things difficult. It's difficult enough. You don't have to add to it. Okay, continuation of languages. Phrases. Is there ever a time when students should memorize entire phrases? And my conclusion to that, no, at least at this point. What I'm going to think a week from now or 2 weeks from now, I couldn't tell you. But at this point, no. Well, if the phrase only consists of 2 or 3 words, then fine. Otherwise, no. This is another I can't even do that in Spanish moment. Yeah, I've already come across a couple of those. So, working out these little concepts. My Spanish vocabulary is massive, and my comprehension of everyday exchanges is excellent. But I couldn't put together a grammatically correct sentence if my life depended on it. I can read a translation and know if the statement is correct, but that's about it. By correct, I mean the translation's meaning is what I intended it to be. Yeah, because if you've ever used Google before, you may have noticed that that's not what you meant to say. Assuming you know your target language well enough to make that assertion. Okay, losing ground. It never fails. Every time I really start working on grammar, everything falls apart. Yeah, just don't get into the grammar unless you're conversational already. Or just, like I said, bare minimum. Because there's really no point. You really, really, really need to focus on vocabulary, not grammar. As I put right here, vocabulary, all capital letters. A next to nothing amount of grammar and conversational skills. Yeah, at this point in time, that conversational skills is becoming very situational. I mean, if you're a highly social person, if you're just a people person, your approach is going to be different. But otherwise, you may have to wait until you're volunteering or I don't know, or are in a position to take a class, a lesson. Okay, what then? More vocabulary. After that, more vocabulary, and then try some vocabulary. All right, I obviously wanted to hammer in the point, so you can get into the grammar after you start working on authentic material. Favorite book? 1 hour a day? Question mark. Yeah, okay, here I am. Actually, I realized that may not be a good option for Russian. Actually, spelling bees. Seeing as how we're dealing with a completely different alphabet, I suppose the next step after vocabulary will be spelling. I have to quiz myself using all the vocabulary words I've accumulated up to that point. Yes, all in caps. Yes, I'm sticking with Romanized. I'm still not sure if that's how you say it. Doohickeys until I absolutely have to let it go. So I'm not getting into I don't need to get into the spelling at this point at all. Until I got a decent enough vocabulary established. Top 25. Here's another big mistake I've been making. I shouldn't have been trying to memorize 25 phrases. I should have used the 25 phrases to construct a new vocabulary list. Okay, out in the margins I put down to learn and or review. This also applies to Spanish. Okay. A continuation of that first paragraph. And then finding as many ways I could to apply them. So I shouldn't have been trying to memorize 25 phrases. I should have used the 25 phrases to construct a new vocabulary list, and then finding as many ways as I could to apply them. What else? Translate notes. Be forever mindful. I spy with my little eye. Oh, yeah. I spy with my little. When I find I'm trying to get a little too ambitious with my projects, I've got to kind of rein myself in. So what is this I spy with my little eye? Sort of. What is that? That's a card. What are these? These are ants. What is this? This is a sidewalk. What are these? These are flowers, etc., etc., etc. How do you say in Russian? Well, that one's just in case Yandex is out of reach. Only use if you're not opposed to an exchange. Yeah, that's a double-edged sword. If you really don't want to have to extend your abilities that far, or you're not prepared to do so, don't even bother with the how do you say whatever in Russian, or whatever language you're trying to get. Okay, now how did I come up with these phrases? This is me walking to the library and just getting in the habit of at least trying to say something. That's me working on my nouns, all right? Which is something I can do in Spanish. And that's about all I can do in Spanish. So, because when I try to do the describing, I can't even do that in Spanish. So, yeah, I've had to rein it in a little. So, you really don't know until you start applying these things and poking at these things what all the details are going to end up being. Oh, comprehension. This was just a couple of days ago. Before spelling bees, pick out your top 100 phrases, record them, and then play back the recording and write out the English translation. Of course, the phrases have to consist of your established vocabulary words. I can definitely do this in Spanish. Okay, that's another thing I can do in Spanish. So, that's how I'm measuring out these things now. Really trying to compare or be realistic. Because after 300 and whatever words, just being able to recognize 2 or 3 is not doing it for me at all. Okay, so what do I have here? Oh, part 1, conversational. Part 2, In Flight. Part 3, Lonely Planet. This is me getting a little bit more detailed as far as how I'm going to divvy this up. Okay, for the Lonely Planet thing, I was starting to get very specific. Supermarket related, bus related, taxi related, train related. Comprehension purposes, everything else. No, that's for in-flight. Comprehensive purposes, everything. That is not for Lonely Planet. Lonely Planet gets pretty massive. I mean, that's only a few sections from Lonely Planet. Okay. I think that's about it. Except for, yeah. So here we are. After all that back and forth, oh my gosh, 36 minutes, I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, this is the updated thing. This is where I'm at today. I wrote this today. So for the vocabulary, again, conversational Russian, quick and easy, in-flight Russian, and the specific sections from Lonely Planet. Those are going to be my 3 vocabulary lists. And this is all for comprehension. Again, I've almost eliminated the conversational objective at this point. At this point, the only place that text comes in is in the creation of my first vocabulary list. Otherwise, yeah, like I said, I'm not impressed with where I'm at. Okay, so all that's for comprehension. After I've gained comprehension, then I'm going to focus in on spelling. This is where I enter the conversational skills. It's in parentheses. It's already been eliminated as something doable. Okay, I put an arrow, volunteering, classes, or both. I'm gauging my own personality against this. If you're a person, see, this is why I do not like filling in the blanks. Because like I said, if I fill in all the blanks, the only person that's going to be able to use that approach is me. You really have to make it your own. You're the one that's going to work out the details. But this is an example of what I ended up with. Okay, after I work on the spelling, news vocabulary. When I said watch videos that have you, yeah, I put that in there. Yeah. The street signs, once you get there. Right. I've also eliminated that. I'm not getting into that at this point. Another objective, not having to use a dictionary more than 5 times a day. I'm a bit of a geek. I use a dictionary for English still, so I'm always going to use a dictionary, but I want to be able to drastically reduce the amount of times I have to refer to it on a daily basis. So, yeah. Okay, so how do I do that? The dictionary at the end of Lonely Planet. Because I did do that for Spanish. And it really shocked me, actually. I came away from that experience questioning whether I ever knew the language to begin with, because there were a lot of words I didn't know. So, but yes, I have done that in Spanish, and I am prepared to do that with Russian. But that's only after all these other things are done. And that is only to reduce the amount of times I have to refer to a dictionary. Okay, another thing, again, with the star next to it and in caps, don't bother getting into grammar until you're conversational. You should always be reviewing vocabulary lists, at least for 2 years. Alright, so that's now where I've established where my priorities should be. And I put in the bottom here, be forever mindful. You know what I said about beginning and intermediate students? Yeah, of motivation. Staying motivated. All right, be forever mindful. Oh, for the grammar thing, yeah, I've specified just short phrasebook grammar section. Next to nothing grammar. Okay, so again, I'm just reestablishing and stay away from, for the most part, stay away from grammar until you're conversational. What you really need to be focusing in on is vocabulary. Okay, so darn, 41 minutes, I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't want that to be this long, but it was too much. Again, I had to retract too many of my previous statements. So, sorry about that. This is why I knew I should not be recording as I'm jotting down all these language notes. Because it's going to be a lot of back and forth. This is just a language update. Alright? My language journey update. I'm not going to upload anything every time something changes, because there's going to be a lot of changes before I really break any kind of ground in this endeavor. So, okay, 42 minutes. I am sorry. Did not mean for it to be this long. It is July 11th, 2023, 3:07 p.m. somewhere in Brooklyn. As always, try to stay safe, try to stay healthy, and good luck to you. Take care.